Hello and welcome to the City School Part 2 SBHS Alumni College Panel. I'm Ms. Boyer, teacher at the high school, and these SBHS alumni have volunteered their time to give back to the SB community in hopes to give you clarification and inspiration during your college search and selection process. The questions you are going to hear have been gathered over the years through various college panel discussions at the high school. If there is a question you would like answered that was not addressed during this session, please see the link at the bottom of the SBHS Alumni College Panel discussion page. Let's get started by asking each of the panelists to introduce themselves and give us a little background information. So we'll start with, let's start from the bottom up. So Ashma, tell us about you.
So my name is Ashma, obviously. I go to the University of Pittsburgh. I'm a junior. I am a double major in biology and psychology and a double minor in creative writing and chemistry. I'm on the pre-med track, and that's about it.
Nice, okay. Destiny? And make sure you are unmuted.
My name is Destiny Brown. I go to Pace University and their NYC campus. I'm majoring in arts and entertainment management, minoring in women's and gender studies, and I'm a part of two organizations on campus. One is a programming board and another is a student-run record label.
Nice. Sonia?
Hi, I'm Sonia. I'm a second-year biology major at Drexel University. I'm also in their BS plus MD program, and I'm minoring in Spanish and public health. Something I'm involved in on campus are I'm a student ambassador for Drexel, and I'm also treasurer of the Operation Smile Club.
Great. Rohan?
Hey, I'm Rohan. I am a sophomore at the George Washington University. I'm studying neuroscience on the pre-med track. Some things that I do on campus, I'm very involved in the theater community, and I'm going to be the president of class council next year, as well as being a GW Star Tour Guide.
Great. And last but not least, Ruchi?
Hi everyone, my name is Ruchi Dandukia. I go to NYU, specifically the Stern Business School. I'm majoring in finance and management. I'm currently a senior, so I'm kind of sad of graduating, but happy to move on. And one or two things I'm involved in is that I'm currently co-president of the undergraduate Stern Women in Business, and I'm also a member of an honor society at Stern.
Great. So we're just going to jump right in and start asking some questions to get to know a little bit more about your experience. So I'm going to start with Ruchi again. What was the main thing you were looking for when deciding on a college, and how did you make your final decision when selecting?
Of course. I think the first thing that I was looking for when deciding what college I wanted to attend was the different programs and the reach that the schools did have. For me, because I never left South Brunswick, I really wanted to get a chance to explore beyond New Jersey and especially beyond the States. And for me, NYU really touts their study abroad programs. And so I was able to actually go study abroad during my time at NYU. And so for that was a huge factor in choosing a college for me.
And Ashma, same question.
So I think a big part of when I decided what college I wanted to go to was kind of the opportunities that the school would afford me that would help me with applying to med school and kind of the journey beyond. And so Pitt really touts the relationship with UPMC, and there's a lot of research opportunities and volunteer opportunities, as well as non-clinical opportunities that are really easy to get into from your freshman year itself. And so that was a really big compelling factor for me.
The next question we're going to ask, we'll start with Rohan. What is special about going to a school in a city?
So I think there's a lot of things that are special about going to school in the city. One of the biggest things is that you, especially at GW, you kind of have a campus that you get to share with all of these other students that you know, but you're also right in the middle of the city. So you get to take advantage of a lot of the opportunities that a city would have. I know at GW in particular, a lot of people like to do internships off campus, whether it's on Capitol Hill for a lot of the political science students. I know there's students that like to take advantage of internships at the National Air and Space Museum and the Natural History Museum. So that's a lot of fun to be able to have those opportunities. Also, something that's really special about GW is their dining plan. And we're actually able to eat at between 90 and 100 different locations around campus, ranging from Chipotle, but also being able to grocery shop at Whole Foods and CVS. You're not really stuck on going to the dining hall. You really get a lot more freedom in getting to pick what you do at school. And I think that's what's special for me about going to school in the city.
You just sold me. You just sold me on the whole thing. Food is the answer to all my questions. Okay. Sonia, same question. What was special about going to a city school?
I completely agree with Rohan. They kind of going off the same lines. I think there's so much available, whether it's in terms of fun stuff to do or like academic professional opportunities. So I'm on the pre-med track, and there's a lot more clinics available. Like being in a city, you're interacting with different populations you might not have the chance to if you were in a suburban environment. So I really like that aspect of it. Also, Drexel is a big co-op school, so for especially being pre-med, we're surrounded by some of the biggest and best hospitals in the country, sorry. So that's available to volunteer or shadow or do research at. There's also so many museums. I'm a big art person, so I love having the Philadelphia Art Museum, literally a 10-minute walking distance from campus. I also just like to escape sometimes from campus, so I can go to a coffee shop in the city, do my work there for a day, and then come back and still be involved on campus. So it's really nice having the best of both worlds, to literally look at my apartment from one window and see like greenery, see our campus, and then from the other side of my apartment, I see the whole city skyline. So I love that.
That's awesome. Rohan, what would you say has been the main sign that said this was the school for you?
So I actually toured a lot of schools. I think I was really strongly considering 8 schools during my senior year of high school. And so going to all of these college visits, the thing that really stood out for me is that in a city school, you're able to combine having a small based community on college campus, but also having all of the opportunities that surround you in the surrounding city. I know that specifically GW, for me, they had just added a neuroscience major, and they're really trying to become a bigger science school. So I really like that, in conjunction with having so many different student organizations on campus. And we always say at GW students are really go-getters. And in high school, I really tried to take advantage of as many clubs and activities as possible, because I really enjoy getting involved. And I was able to go to GW and continue doing all of those activities and work on academics, and putting all of those together is what really made GW the school for me.
Destiny, how did you know that Pace was the school for you?
It was in New York City, which was huge for me because I'm working in music. So the 2 main cities that you want to be in if you're working in music is LA and New York. And I knew that I wanted to be close enough to my family that I can go back, but I also wanted to be far enough that they couldn't call me back every 5 minutes. So Pace was the happy in between. And also just I felt like the other students that were there when I was touring, a lot of them met the same level of ambition and motivation that I did. And so it was really just surrounding myself with like-minded people, and knowing that they had a strong network of students that I can not take advantage of, but build off of and nurture relationships with, was really important for me. So that was definitely my main factor.
Ruchi, what has been the most exciting opportunity you've taken advantage of so far at your school?
Sure. And I also mentioned this when I was looking for where I wanted to go for college. That's definitely study abroad. So because NYU is in this city, they already are giving you a well-rounded experience. But I guess because of the culture at NYU, they want to make sure that you have a global experience. That's one of the pillars that they do value. And so for me, during my sophomore fall, so second year in college, I was able to study abroad in Prague for 4 months, and I was also able to do an internship there to really get immersed in the culture of the Czech people. And so I think that was kind of a turning point in my college experience, and that really allows you to like know what you value, know where you want to go, what you want to pursue, and you take all those experiences and kind of build off that when you do come back to the city. Because it is the city, there's a lot of things going on, there's a lot of people, and independence is something that you really learn to value. And I think is a skill that is that everyone kind of develops naturally when you are at such a big school, because there is no central campus, the city's your campus. And so I think kind of studying abroad, you get that you're in a different campus, so you have a more homey feel, and then you're just kind of more confident in yourself and your abilities when you do come back. So I think study abroad was like the best decision I could have ever made.
Really cool. Destiny, same thing. What has been, the most exciting opportunity you've taken advantage of?
I would definitely say internships. I don't necessarily feel like the internships that I've obtained over the past 4 years haven't been like direct opportunities that I got from a job listing at Career Services. It was more so PACE students specifically are really good at sticking together and like fighting for opportunities, because we don't have like the brand name of a Columbia or an NYU or whatever, and they have really large alumni networks. PACE is still building theirs. So a lot of the current students really look out for each other, and sort of like if they're done with an internship, they'll recommend another PACE student for it to keep us all in the building, sort of thing. And interning has definitely been the most important opportunity that I've gotten since coming to college, especially working in music. Being in those buildings and understanding the company culture is like 75% of it. Learning the skills comes later. And had I not gone to a school in the city, the major city for my industry, I wouldn't have been able to have those opportunities and make those relationships that I needed in order to jumpstart my career. So for sure, internships.
Nice. Ashma, I know that you had a list of what you're majoring in, minoring, and all that. How did you decide what you wanted to study?
I think all of my paths of study are definitely a huge reflection of the interests that I cultivated in high school. In high school, I took AP Bio, and I did like a summer psych program, and I definitely felt like I had a natural penchant towards that. And so, my freshman year, I took my bio classes and I took a psych class, and it really, really reaffirmed what I already knew and what I wanted to study. Again, I've always loved to write. I took Mr. Honig for AP Lit and Lang, and it was the best class I've till date taken. And that kind of reaffirmed, the creative writing path. And so I think I gave myself a bit of time in my freshman year to kind of reassure what I wanted to do. But it was truly just a reflection of my interests.
Can you remind us again, what is the list of, what is the list of your majors?
So I'm a double major in bio and psych, and a double minor in creative writing and chemistry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as the students watch this, if you have questions about any of those four, we'll have everybody repeat at the end, so you know exactly who you want to target your question towards. Sonia, same question. How did you decide?
So similar to what Ashima said, I'd always been interested in the sciences as far back as I can remember. I did take classes like AP Bio in high school, which further kind of pushed me towards biology. I always knew I wanted to be a doctor from literally I feel like when I came out of the womb, I said the word stethoscope. That was my first word I ever said. But so the BSMD program I think was perfect for me because it gave me that assurance that I was going to go to medical school, but I could also focus on my other interests. I also took Spanish all 4 years of high school and had great relationships with my Spanish teachers. I think that really encouraged me to also pursue Spanish further. My future goals as a physician would also kind of align with the reasons why I'm studying Spanish in college. I also really see like the whole public health aspect of medicine. So I think developing those foundations early on for my undergraduate career would allow me to enter the healthcare field with a perspective from the humanities perspective as well, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Where we just want to talk also, you know, it's super important to get involved in school no matter where your school is located. So we just want you to give us a little background about, other than being a student, what other things on campus are you involved in, and how have they really impacted your experiences? So let's start with Rohan.
So I'm like pretty active on campus. I really enjoy being a part of extracurricular activities. The first one is class council. I was the vice president this past year, and I'm going to be the president in the fall. And it's really been a place where I can create community with other people that are in my class, the class of 22, but also with students of all other years. I've been able to put on some really big events with class council this year. We were able to bring Josh Peck to our campus. I also have been able to produce our annual Battle of the Acapella event, which is where the GW acapella groups kind of battle it out pitch perfect style. And they're some of the biggest attended events at GW, so that's really rewarding to be able to have all of these GW students come to the events that you've been working on for so long. I also am a big part of the GW theater community. We have 4 theater companies on campus, and I'm involved with the ones that primarily do musicals. But I've really gotten to find my community and my best friends on campus by being a part of board. I work with the finance. I'm a financial director, but I've also been able to take advantage of being in shows. I've been in Legally Blonde and Mamma Mia, and I'm going to be directing a full length called All Shook Up in the fall, and I'm very, very excited to do that.
Ashma, how about you? What are you involved in?
Yeah, so I guess like Rohan, I am also a big part of student government. I have been all 3 of the years that I've been at school. This past year, I was vice president and chief of finance, and it's really enriching to be in student government, I think, because it's crazy the level of impact your voice can have on campus. I mean, during this whole COVID pandemic, when like schools went remote, I worked with the chancellor and pretty much like the highest administration to create monetary funds for students who are particularly hit. And so it was definitely a change from like class council in high school, where, you know, we did like the work was so different. I'm also a part of a few research fellowships, and I volunteer at the local hospitals, and those are kind of really important opportunities for me to kind of shape my perspective as a future physician.
Destiny, how about you?
So I am a part of 2 organizations on campus. One is called PACE Music Group, and the other is called PACE Board. But PACE Board is actually an acronym. It's basically our official programming board. So all of the major events that PACE uses to promote the university to potential or to prospective students, it's myself and a team of 4 other girls managing like hundreds of thousands of dollars to put on all of those events by ourselves. And so that was a really useful experience for me because it like gave me a more in-depth understanding of live events and programming, which is something that I've always been really passionate about, as Boyer knows, when she was my STU co-advisor. But yeah, so something that I like about PACE is that they separate the programming board and student government are completely separate. And so I know with the high school, like STUGA sort of serves as both purposes for across the high school. But with the university being so large, them separating it and making it 2 different organizations allows a certain level of specialization, which I think is beneficial for students. And so through that organization, I started off as a general member my freshman and sophomore year. I then got elected to being treasurer, and then this year, my senior year, I was vice president. And as vice president, I was able to bring Megan Thee Stallion to perform at our school. I was able to get Rico Nasty for a live Q&A and like living room concert because of quarantine. We did everything virtually, so that's been really fun. And then the second organization I'm a part of is PACE Music Group. So PACE, one of their main like marketing strategies for arts and entertainment students is, well, you know, we have a great business school and a great performing arts school. You can come here and do both. And that was just like simply a lie until we started PMG. There really wasn't a space for people who wanted to work on the business side of entertainment or music specifically, and students who also want to be musicians to work collaboratively together and like learn more about how the industry functions in itself. So 5 of us started a student-run record label, and we went through all of like our activities fund guidelines to see how we can allocate the money in a certain way to be able to do distribution ourselves, do concerts ourselves, pay for branding and album packaging and anything that a traditional label would do for a signed recording artist, we were able to do for musicians that we were recruiting from PACE. And every single artist on our roster was a PACE student aspiring to be a musician. So we were able to give workshops because it was a community, there is a community space as well as a record label. So on one hand, we're doing educational workshops, panels, meet and greets, bringing artists and A&Rs and producers, etc., and to meet these students and teach them about the business side of their craft. But then we're also putting out full-length projects and singles and music videos and lyric videos, etc. And that was something that I had the opportunity to start. So I recommend, if regardless of what school you're going to, make sure you look into the extracurriculars and make sure that they're tailored to your interests. And if they're not, make sure that there's room for you to be able to start it on your own and support and resources for you to be able to start it on your own. Because otherwise, I honestly don't know if I would have stayed at PACE if I weren't a part of those 2 organizations. They were really crucial to my college experience. So.
Wow. Okay. Ruchi, how about you?
Yeah, so again, I'm also part of 2 organizations. I'm more active in USWIP, which is the Undergraduate Starting Women in Business Club. So I'm currently co-president of the organization, and kind of in a little summary, we basically try to prepare women in college and make sure that they're educated enough and they're confident enough to enter the workforce. And so one thing that we do pride ourselves is trying to tackle the entire idea of like masculinity and patriarchy in the workforce, just because especially in NYU Stern, our business school does focus a lot on investment banking, finance opportunities, consulting opportunities, and there is a slight growth in tech. And so all those fields are heavily male dominated. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. And so when I was a freshman, this was the organization that I really wanted to get involved with. And over the 4 years, I kind of ended up to the position that I am today. And like with my beautiful and wonderful kind of e-board team, we're able to bring in a slew of speakers, and we have a conference that brings in all these companies in order to make sure that there's opportunities for our members. We actually have an event coming up the Monday called Empowered Women in the Workforce. So we have a representative from Google, Estee Lauder, NARS coming in to speak. And so this is just a safe space and a way for our members to kind of get advice. So kind of a little anecdote, when I did intern in the summer, I was in a financial consulting internship, and I was the only woman in my intern group just because it was heavily financed. And so this club kind of taught me, like, how do you approach situations where you're talked over? How do you promote, or how do you approach a boss? They might have microaggressions towards you because they don't think you understand the content because you are a female. So NYU is more career oriented. And so our school does try to focus on making sure that you are well equipped, and especially our club, we want to make sure that the women students in our college are as equipped as anyone else.
That's really great. I'm learning a lot. I love this. This is my favorite. Sonia, how about you? Extracurriculars.
One of my favorite things that I'm involved in on campus is being a student ambassador for Drexel. I think this is such a rewarding experience. I'm so happy that my dad kind of pushed me to do this. It wasn't something that I thought I would see myself doing. But I've met some of my best friends in this program. I think that in my classes, I'm surrounded by students of the same major as me, who kind of come in with the same perspective on things. But through this program, I met students who are in very different majors, come from different parts of the world. It's really cool to have that experience to meet different people, basically. I think it's also really rewarding to have the impact, the possibility to have the impact on prospective students and families, talk to them about your experiences. Something else I'm involved in on campus is I'm treasurer for Operation Smile. Operation Smile is an organization that kind of performs surgeries on children with cleft lip or cleft palate across the world. And a few friends and I actually started the Drexel chapter of this last year. It was really nice to be able to start something that wasn't already on campus. And my school really had the resources to make that possible. And I was able to find an advisor to support the groups. That was really nice. It was definitely a little difficult starting up a club from the beginning because no one really knows what's happening. You have to start small. When you have 5 people in a meeting, then 10, then 15. And finally, we built up to about like 40 students, which is not crazy huge, but it's still nice. And we're able to really push the mission statement. I'm also involved in the American Medical Women's Association, which just allows me to network with other students of the same interests and passions. I also joined an intramural volleyball team this year, which was kind of fun because I'm really bad at volleyball, but it was super cool just to kind of push myself to do something different and just go out there and have fun. So our season did get cut short because of coronavirus, but we're doing like online games. So we're still like having fun with our team. So it's been nice.
That is really nice. Sounds like you guys have all, made your mark so far, dug in. How, or if you could describe for us, and if you could also add a little bit of that extracurricular component to your answer, describe your transition from high school to college. And I guess my side question is, if you weren't involved in high school, is it okay? I want to kind of focus a little bit on that too, is, some of these students that maybe didn't jump in and take as many opportunities as they could in high school, is it going to hold them back in college? So how was your transition, and put that extracurricular piece in there? So let's start with Ruchi on that one.
So back in high school, I was actually involved in FBLA. And so that kind of pioneered my interest in business. As soon as I was, I think, a freshman in high school, I kind of knew that I didn't have any talent in bio, like props to everyone else here. That just like wasn't an interest of mine. And I knew I was okay at business, but I didn't really form an interest in it. That was just kind of a career path that I realized I had a skill set in. And then through FBLA, I was able to have like leadership positions, talk with Ms. Hunt, Ms. Boger and everyone else, and really meet a smart, talented group of individuals who I would do competitions with. I think I reached nationals in 9th grade for MIS. Realized that wasn't the field for me, but I did like kind of giving an idea and expressing that to a larger group of authority and really making that impact in a problem. And so that was kind of my way to business school. I was also involved in Temptation, which is, I'm sure you guys know, the Asian club at high school. And so for me, that involvement kind of got me into a more leadership style in terms of it's okay to speak out and kind of broadcast your ideas. And so those two things for me kind of aligned me into, I guess, my involvement in USWIP because it gave me a sense of leadership and my interest in business. That being said, I wasn't part of NHS. I didn't do that much volunteering. I think one advice that I would say if you may not have as many extracurriculars is, I think, focus on a lot of college essays and really show like why you're interested in college and do your research as to why that specific college. I think that really comes across very well to anyone who is kind of reading your application, making that decision.
Do you feel academically we prepared you? And
remember, 100%.
Remember you're being recorded?
Yeah. No, 100%. I think there were times in college where if I didn't know an accounting homework, freshman year, I actually called Ms. Hunt. I was like, can you please help me with accounting? And she was like very well responding. And so, like besides that, like I think SBHS really does a good job in having opportunities for you to take AP classes because a lot of my peers didn't have that opportunity when I met them. Right. And having all these extracurriculars. So I think if you can take advantage of that, definitely do. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world, and there are other ways to achieve where you want to achieve.
Right. Rohan, tell us about your transition from high school to college.
So I definitely think academically, I was more than prepared to go from SBHS to GW. I think that I took AP Chemistry with Mr. Burnett, and then I decided to retake Chemistry 1 my freshman year, and they really were very, very similar. And I remember on my first chemistry test, I got a 97, whereas the average was in the low 70s. I was like, okay, like that's really great. And I've been able to match that in a lot of my science classes that I've been able to take there. If there's one like transition area that was a little bit rougher for me, I would say that it would be moving from living in New Jersey to living in the residence halls back at school. And GW has so many different configurations of how you can live. And I actually got placed in a single my freshman year, which living in a single, everybody always had their door open because everybody in the dorm was a freshman. But in terms of creating community and my personality, I don't think that was the best fit for me. So if there's one piece of advice that I have, it's try to live in the biggest dorms that they have, live with a roommate. Yes, you might have a roommate conflict or something, but it's actually really, really important. And I think that you get to meet a lot more people in the residence halls. And GW doesn't have dining halls. Like I said, we have a little bit of an augmented dining program. So I think in city schools, the residence halls can be one of the biggest places that you can cultivate community. So then once I knew I was living in a single, that's when I was like, okay, I know I'll get involved with extracurriculars. And going from Pirandello in high school to student theater, I can say one thing about student organizations as a whole in college is that everything is run by the students. There's not really the presence of an advisor. So it went from having like these big sets done for us to having our boards like put together a set and have to spend an entire day and really putting all of the work in. And that's how you build your community, by being a part of these larger organizations. So it's never too late to become involved in a student organization. I didn't do student government in high school, and now I'm in class council in college. And I really think that city schools are a great place to take advantage of as many opportunities that you can.
Absolutely.
I'm also a resident advisor now and living in the residence halls. Take advantage of your RAs. I know RAs are often portrayed as being annoying, but they're actually really, really great resources. And if you're lucky to have one in your hall, just asking them questions, even if it's figuring out where to go on campus to eat or figuring out how to get to your classes, like they always want to help you. And they're just, I don't know, great resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Sonia, tell us about your transition.
Yeah, I think academically, South Brunswick High School really definitely prepared me for college. Drexel's actually on the quarter system, so we're all different from other semester schools. So we have 4 10-week quarters, which means we do have finals 4 times a year. We do go all year round schooling, which means that everything is a little bit more fast-paced. But I think I was definitely prepared for this. I'm taking physics right now, and the last time I took physics before this was freshman year with Mr. Sadowski. That was probably the hardest class I took in all of high school, but even now, I actually saved all my notes, and I actually refer back to the notes I took in 9th grade when I was a sophomore in college, and they are really helpful. So I think I was definitely prepared from the academic standpoint, but also transitioning from high school to college, I think I learned a lot more about myself and how I learn best, how I work best. And I think you really need that like beginning buffer time to take that time to try different things, try out different learnings, like try out different note-taking styles, try out hanging out with different people, like attend different organization meetings to really see what interests you, because you never know what might appeal to you if you were only stuck doing the same things in high school. And as Rohan said, it's definitely never too late to start doing something that you weren't involved in high school. I always thought through high school that I would completely hate research. A lot of my friends took advantage of summer research opportunities in high school, but I just thought that would never appeal to me. But I started working in a research lab this year, and I actually really enjoy it. I think it was just about finding a topic that interested me. In general, I think that college is really good for personal growth, and you should give yourself that time to adjust, and then you learn about yourself and how you work best. Yeah, like in the beginning, I called my mom the first week. I was like, how do I do the laundry? Like, what do I separate whites, colors? But like now that I'm almost 2 years in, I think that I've definitely grown as an individual. And even being in the city, you learn to be more independent, kind of finding your way around, doing things, taking like the subway by yourself. So I definitely think the transition is a little shaky in the beginning because you're just trying to figure out how things go. But once you get the hang of it, it really is easy.
Destiny, tell us about your transition experience.
So when I transitioned from high school to college, I had a lot of things shifting in like my personal and family life. So it was like a culture shock going from the suburbs to like one of the biggest cities in the world, but it also was just like the idea of me going out on my own and being separate from my family and friends and that sort of thing. That is always going to be a culture shock no matter where you go. And so I think that something that was really hard for me was like rebuilding that foundation and finding out like who is in your life for the long run, and like who, you know, whose friendship or relationship really serves its time and purpose. I think that it took me 4 years to really master that. And it's something that's really important to learn before you leave college, is knowing how to understand people and knowing how, you know, people like to be communicated with and why, and like making sure that you're having a positive impact on the people that you're surrounding yourself with, but also that they're having a positive impact in your life. So I've really learned how to further analyze my relationships, and in the process that meant like a lot of my friends that I thought I was going to be really close with after high school, I wasn't, and some of the ones that I didn't think I was going to stay super close with, I was, and sometimes I was dead right, and you know, the right people stayed, but just being open to those transitions socially, I think is super important, especially going to school in the city, because I know with New York specifically, it can feel very lonely here if you don't have your village. It's like the biggest city in the world practically, and there's like so many people here, but for that same reason, it can make you also feel a little alone when you first get here. So just being open to embracing that loneliness, and also being open to reevaluating your relationships, that was something that was super important for me in terms of my transition from high school to college. From an extracurricular perspective, I obviously, as Blair knows, I was in Stuco, and then I also did theater with Pirandello, just like Rohan, and those were really important experiences for like my high school experience, and definitely helped me in college. But I've seen so many people who were not involved at all in high school, had no interest in anything outside of just getting whatever grades they wanted to get in their classes and going home. And that's totally fine if that is the case. But if your interest in getting more involved increases over time, like embrace that and try different things. Like Rohan said, the big difference between extracurriculars in college versus high school is that your supervisor is really just there for very specific deadlines or very specific things that they need to approve or to connect you with the right people on campus. But the students that are on that board really do have free reign over everything that comes out of that organization. So I feel like that's something that was a welcome change for me, because I felt like I really had the trust and freedom to sort of just run with it and execute my ideas along with my team. So I think that's super important. And I will say personally, for me, being a part of student government and theater in high school definitely gave me, I guess, a leg up, for lack of a better word, because I already had experience leading organizations and working in teams. But like I said, there are so many people who hadn't, who were just naturals at it or learned along the way. And so I definitely don't think it's too late if you aren't doing it already.
And Ashma, how about your transition?
Yeah, so from an academic standpoint, I guess to echo what everyone has said earlier, I think SBHS has really prepared me. There's so many opportunities that high school provided that I just took for granted and I thought were across the board. And it was only when I came to college and met people from all over the country that I realized what a leg up that it gave me, both socially, academically. From an extracurricular standpoint, I was involved in a few clubs in high school, but they were very disparate. I was an FBLA, and like, I'm not good at business at all. So I think extracurriculars in college were really important for me socially. So the year I came to Pitt, a lot of kids from SBHS also came to Pitt. And I think it was really easy. And I actually live with 2 girls from South Brunswick High School. And I think it was really easy to kind of get caught up in that high school bubble in college. And I really didn't want that to happen. I wanted to expand my bubble. And I think extracurriculars were kind of the window to that opportunity where I could meet people from different disciplines, different backgrounds, and really gain a larger perspective on what college is. And I think that the school, being in a city, all leads to being very well-rounded in your experiences. And while that transition is definitely tough in the beginning, I think those struggles kind of make the entire rest of your college career very meaningful.
So what you're saying is we're doing an awesome job. I'm loving that you all had a teacher to name, or if you've had a teacher to name, I'll make sure that they go back and watch this when we're done so that they can, pat themselves on the back. The next question, just real quick, what advice would you give to students? And you've given a lot of advice just by describing your experience thus far, but what advice would you give to students getting ready to enter the world of college? And also, what advice do you wish you had gotten before you entered college? So pick one or the other. Either you have a really strong piece of advice to give them now, or you wish somebody had grabbed your 9th grade self and shaken you a little bit and gave you some advice before you started the college process. Let's throw that to Sonia first.
I think that's something that I wish advice that I'd gotten before, but also what I would like to pass on since I didn't get it before, is to definitely not come in with a lot of expectations, just kind of go with the flow. I think you kind of get in your head about what you expect college to be like, what you expect your relationship with your roommate to be like, and then you kind of don't actually go with the flow and actually enjoy what you do have. Just a funny story, I lived in a 6-person suite my freshman year, and I chose 4 of my roommates and 2 were random. So I met my 4 roommates through the Facebook page, and I expected to be best friends with my roommate. I thought we'd do everything together, share closets. It was just gonna be a great time. By the end of the year, my roommate and I really weren't best friends. We weren't on not that we weren't on talking terms, we just weren't as close as I thought we'd be. But the 2 girls who I didn't choose in my 6-person suite, the ones who were random, they're 2 of my best friends now. So it's kind of cool how it worked out for me. So I think just definitely go with the flow. Don't have too many expectations about what you want college to be like.
Okay. Ashma, what would you say? What would your advice be?
I think that school, my piece of advice would, one, to take it slow and kind of go with the flow, but also to make yourself aware of the opportunities. I think a lot of students come in with an expectation of what they're going to study, what their 4 years are going to be like. And I think by increasing the diversity of experiences that you seek out and let come to you, it just really makes for a meaningful college experience.
Rohan, how about you?
So I think one of the biggest things is not being afraid to ask for help when you need it. Going to your professor's office hours or a TA's office hours, even if you just have the simplest of questions, they really enjoy getting to know you better, and it reflects better on you as you take the class. I also think that one piece of advice I would give to students is if you're in a city school, to explore the city. We often say that at GW you get stuck within the foggy bottom bubble, which is just a small part of Washington, D.C. But going to other places, just within the city, really enhances your college experience and makes you get that full city experience.
I'm sure, absolutely. Destiny, what kind of advice?
So something that I wish someone had told me, and I'm now telling whoever is watching this, is looking at social issues on campus, whether it be race relations or queer issues or things related to religion, whatever the case may be. See how your school, the schools that you're looking at, are handling these situations. Are they being proactive or are they being reactive? Are they doing the right thing when, the spotlight's on them, or are they doing the right thing all around the clock? And don't always believe the pamphlets. Make sure that just because you are going to a school that says buzzwords like diversity or this, that, or the other that like most schools have on their promo materials. And they'll usually say like, oh, this many students that identify as this race or religion or sexual orientation, etc., were admitted into our school. But look at where the actual numbers and data right now, the students that are staying there from year to year, what's the retention rate, those sort of things. That's something that I definitely wish someone had not brought to my attention, but pushed me to take a closer look at. Because although, yes, one of the most important things is like your major and the program and resources that the tangible things that they're able to give you, the academic perspective is definitely one of the most important things. But at the end of the day, when you are being admitted into a school and you're accepting that offer, you're volunteering to be a part of a community, and you want to make sure that it's a community that makes you feel safe and supported. So don't be afraid to like go and look at tweets or Instagram posts that current students are making and like see how they talk about their school and what their experience is like, and reach out to people who are already in your major or people who have similar identities to you. Like make sure that you're going somewhere where you feel like it's conducive to who you are and supportive of who you are. Because at the end of the day, you're spending 4 years living there, whether it be on campus or off campus. You want to make sure that it's somewhere that you want to spend for some of the most important 4 years of your life at. So definitely keep that in mind, especially with COVID. See how these schools are handling this pandemic, and if they were preventative or proactive, or if they were a little later in the game. Like pay attention to those little things, because if something like this were to happen again in the 4 years that you're there, you want to know for sure how that school is going to handle it.
I was going to ask another COVID question eventually, so hang on to those thoughts. As she's saying, it's coming, it's coming. So Ruchi, go ahead. What is your advice?
Yeah, I guess my advice is to really not be afraid to build relationships, and not with just upperclassmen or students, but also faculty members. I think that like as a freshman, I was heavily involved in going to different clubs and talking to upperclassmen, but I didn't really ask my professors what their experiences were, or how they navigated their careers outside of college, or like where do they think my talents lie from a kind of an advisory perspective. And that is something that I did as a senior, just because I think one of my teachers required us to have one-on-one chats, and not even just talk about the class, but just talk about life. Like, what are your interests? You know, like what are your hobbies? What are your career goals? And I got referred to someone who is now a mentor of mine. And so like, I really do think that like relationships are like something that I think is one of the most important things that you can like kind of build on in college, and not to just kind of segment it into one group, but really kind of expand who you talk to. And that just comes from a natural curiosity that I think you will build as you go throughout your 4 years. And I guess, as Desmi said, like I think paying attention to all that during the pandemic is very important, just because now I know like hopefully colleges do reopen in person in the fall, but just in case things do go virtual, because there is some talk, I think definitely reach out to whoever is the contact for the school if you are going to college as a freshman. I know, I'm not sure about other schools, but NYU is preparing to have different organizations kind of onboard freshmen and say, these are the resources that we have in a more virtual aspect. So definitely don't be afraid to like reach out to them, like, oh, just I wonder what is this aspect of campus like if you are virtual, so you have a familiar face to kind of turn to when you do go back on campus, or like reach out to a professor. And I really think that all these like video streams and Zoom and like Google Hangouts, yes, they might be kind of like humorized during the entire pandemic, but I do think that there are vital resources to kind of help build and maintain those relationships.
So I guess that's kind of how I want to wrap it up. So if you could just really quickly, with this new situation, how have you seen your college experience change? And some of it is going to be really obvious, and you've already mentioned it, so you don't have to mention again, but think of something else that as you came in, and for some of you, you're, wrapping up college, you're in your last semester. How has it changed the landscape going from pre-COVID to right in knee deep in the middle of it all? Rohan, what do you think?
So with classes with COVID, a lot of my classes went from being live lecture classes with the professor to having no contact with the professor. If you didn't have to, a lot of them are actually like the professor will make recordings of them with the slides or will narrate PowerPoints. So if you need help, like you actually like have to do a lot more either video chatting or audio chatting or sending emails to the professor. So it's even harder to take that step to go to office hours or get help with your work. In terms of student organizations, like it's kind of the end of the year, and so a lot of our elections and stuff and our transitions have been through Zoom, and I think to actually have our student organizations are going to be tough if COVID does persist, but still trying to, I guess, if COVID does persist, make friends with the people that are in your classes, take advantage of the times when your professors do try to have live classes and meet the people that way. That would be my biggest piece of advice.
Anybody else want to speak on that? Is there anybody that has a strong one way or the other? Go ahead, Destiny.
Something that has actually been a really cool opportunity that I've gotten out of this horrible situation is we've been able to do a lot more programming in terms of like student involvement because of it. So like we're doing basically the same exact thing that we would have been doing in person, but on Instagram Live or in Zoom. And the scheduling is actually a lot easier because everyone is at home, and it creates more of like a lax environment. So students are getting more like, it's a little more interactive for them. It's a little more personal for them. So that's been really important. And I think like, just like Rohan said, classes I feel are a lot more lax right now because professors are going through it just like students are. So they're being a little more patient and understanding than they usually would. Of course, you have a couple of oddballs that, you know, are just going to be jerks about it, or, you know, maybe lack a little bit of empathy and give you a hard time, and that's fine. There's ways to work around that as well. But I know that me being a second semester senior, I was a little kind of fatigued at this point. So I was welcoming the idea of being able to do the rest of college from home because I was sprinting to that finish line anyway. So I think like for graduating students, it's a little bit of a different experience than for students who are, you know, still going for another year or two after this.
Yeah. Anyone else have any input? Go ahead, Sonia.
For me personally, I was supposed to study abroad this summer, and this is the only quarter that was allowed in my 4-year plan of study based on how classes were placed to actually be able to study abroad. So unfortunately, I can't do that. But it was a little bit difficult to have to rearrange my whole schedule. But it was really nice being able to see how my academic advisor actually reached out to me, and she said, oh, like, I know this is probably not going to end up happening. In early March, she contacted me. So we're able to build a whole new plan of study. So it was really nice to be able to get that support from the staff who's at Drexel. And also, I think something else really cool that Drexel is doing right now is we're actually during midterm season, so we still have like 5 more weeks of school left. So we have a lot of online or Zoom, like, or Instagram Live gym classes. So on campus, we have a lot of like group fitness classes like Zumba, yoga, Pilates, things like that. So they're actually having a lot of those classes take place just virtually. It's been really fun. I've gotten my family involved. So that's just been a good aspect of it, I guess. So that's been nice. But overall, I think just like look into the resources that the school you're looking at has available. And as everyone else mentioned before, just talk to students who do go to the university to see how you would fit in.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an interesting time for all. I want to thank you all for sharing your college experience and for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. We're going to wrap this up at this point, and if any of the students watching at this time have a question that you'd like answered, but you did not hear it answered during this panel, feel free to use the link at the bottom of our SBHS Alumni College Panel discussion page. You would be helpful if you remembered the name of the student or the institution that they attended when you're asking the question, so we can direct it to them personally. And we wish all of you college students the best in the future. We are so grateful that you're out there representing South Brunswick, and we would just like to remind everyone to stay safe at home. Thank you so much, guys.